Okay, so on this video I'm going to take you through ways of approaching a literature essay to hopefully push it up to a level 5. Now a level 5 we would think is going to get you into a grade 7, or if you manage to fulfill it in every single way, probably a grade 8. Let's start with some general principles. Firstly, level 5 is best characterised, the exam boards say, by people who go deeper or broader than just what the writer means. So basically a level 4 candidate is going to go, this is what the text means, and here I'm going to prove it. Whereas in level 5 you're going to consider a broader approach, that there are different interpretations. You're going to go deeper, look and analyse and draw a few things out. Now, to show you what we mean by that, here's a way of dealing with considering different interpretations, because you don't want to be just writing another interpretation is, another interpretation is. You want to have a way that you really can address this properly. So, my approach has always been what you can see here, the but. Something but something. In most cases that's, if you're given an opinion, it's I agree in this way, but I disagree in this way. Sometimes it can be this is true in one way, but not in this way. If it's a comparison, it can be they're similar in this way, but they're different in that way. So by constructing an answer in that way, you're immediately giving yourself different interpretations, and actually also giving yourself a structure for the answer, because you deal with the first bit before the but, and then you deal with the second bit after that. So that's one definite way to make sure that you're dealing with a broader approach. Now, as far as depth goes, it's about developing your ideas in more depth, not just saying them and moving on. So you're going to have fewer ideas, this idea of write a lot about a little. So to do that, you'll want multiple examples which test your argument or take it deeper. Testing your argument, of course, brings in different interpretations as well, looking at whether what you've just said is right, and whether it needs to go deeper than that. Now, the other principle of a level 5 is that you should always have clear connections between methods and ideas. The two go alongside each other. What a writer does and what a writer is trying to achieve. The techniques they use and the ideas, the big ideas that go alongside it. They go together. One produces the other, and the other is produced by and one is produced by the other. So, the final one of the general principles is that a level 5 student may be a little bit more tentative or discursive in their approach. Again, not saying straight out this is what the answer is, but being aware that there may be some little ways around this, using phrases like it gives us the impression that, it suggests this, it puts across an idea of this, those kind of ideas that just create that kind of more tentative approach. The beginning, constructing an overall argument. Now we're going to look at a couple of examples of this. First of all, one from Macbeth. So here's a question. This is, and both of these are going to be from the sample exam that you can find on the AQA website. So starting with this speech, and it's the Unsex Me Here speech, explain how far you think Shakespeare presents Lady Macbeth as a powerful woman. So this is starting with the principle that I have always said, that all literature exams should begin with an answer to the question, an overall answer that works as an argument. So in order to construct this argument that you can follow through, two things that I'd say to look for. First of all, as we just said, use the but to set up those alternative approaches. In this case, yeah, Lady Macbeth is a powerful woman in this way, but is presented as a powerful woman in this way, but not in this way. And that will look like this, therefore. Okay. So let's take that into an actual example. Lady Macbeth is initially presented as a determined woman who seems stronger than Macbeth. That's how she is powerful for a woman of the period. But no matter how strong she's seen to be, we see her power is limited by her need for a man to fulfill her ambitions, which is how she may not be as powerful when you look closely. So you can see how that structure can be used for almost any question here. How does Shakespeare use violence in the play? Well, he uses it in this way, but then again, you could look at it this way. Here, I'm agreeing with the statement that's there, but then I'm questioning it afterwards, and I think that's pretty much the way we're looking at things. Let's look at it now. Here I put up the bullet points because I think these are helpful with a question like this, where it's not giving you an opinion to respond to, but what do you think is the importance of the beast in Lord of the Flies? So they've given you 2 bullet points here: how different characters respond to the beast, how Golding uses the beast to explore ideas about society and people in Lord of the Flies. And this is really how I would say an argument can work when you're just given a question like, what's the importance of a theme? First of all, you look at it just on a kind of literal level in the sense of how as it said, how the characters respond here. What does it mean within the context of the book? And then the idea of the broader ideas that go. So that is what it will look like. How the beast is important to the characters, but how it may be more important in exploring ideas. Let's look at the example. So it's clear that the beast allows Jack to exploit the fear and use it as a basis for his own tribe, breaking up the boys' community. But Golding seems just as concerned with using it to show the overall issue of how fear brings out the savagery and evil in mankind. You can see it creates, first of all, a thoughtful and developed argument. And that word thoughtful has been made clear to us is the characteristic, really, of level 5. I've thought about how it works with the characters, and I've thought about how Golding uses it to explore something wider. And my argument is that that's the more important aspect. Having constructed an argument, and that really shouldn't take you very long, especially if you've revised effectively, because in terms of revision, I think hopefully you'd have come across nearly and planned for nearly every scenario that's there, so you'll have ideas in your head. We now need to develop a plan. Now, for those people out there who don't think they need plans, you do. It has a particular purpose. If you don't organise your ideas, if you don't create a structure for your response, what you're going to end up doing is going through chronologically in order, and you won't explore what you need to in depth. So that's what the plan is there for. You've already got your answer, so that will create some ideas for you there, but you just got to organise it and structure it. 5 minutes maximum, and that includes coming up with the answer. And what I would suggest is 2 main sections. If you're somebody who's aiming for a level 5, you don't need more than that. It will mean you have to go into depth in each of those sections. So, as I said here, it's based on your argument. First of all, you deal with before the but, and then you deal with after the but. And what you would want to do in your plan is just decide what are you going to say in each of those sections. So there is the argument that we came up with for Lady Macbeth in the first place. So the first section is going to be looking at how is she portrayed as a determined woman who seems stronger than Macbeth, which is what I've come up with before the but there. Okay. Then that's going to be broken into 2 sections, and in the extract and in the rest of the play. And that's going to be obviously the same for both of the extract questions. Right? It's, although you don't have to approach it in this way of sections where you deal with extract then rest of the play, extract then rest of the play. You know, the examiner, the chief examiner has noted that the best students generally did do this, and it does help towards a 5. So having then analysed in the extract how she's a determined woman who seems stronger, having then looked at how that works in the rest of the play, you move on to the second section. How do we see her power limited by her need for a man to fulfil her ambitions in the extract and in the rest of the play? Quick plan, easy to sort out, okay? Obviously, the majority of your planning in this case is working with the extracts. Here's the Lord of the Flies argument at the top, and you can see again it just breaks into two easy sections which you can then put your ideas down about. How does Golding use the beast to show Jack's exploitation? How does he use it to show the wider issue in mankind? Now, it might be worth pointing out at this point that the argument that I produce, it is answering the question, but whereas the question was how does Golding do this, I'm just as much looking at what Golding does. And the how comes in more in the main section. So if you look at the argument here, it's clear that the beast always allows Jack to exploit the fear and use it as the basis for own tribe, break out the boy's community. Well, that's what happens in it. I'm not talking about the technique there. Then Golding uses it to show the overall issue of how fear brings out savagery and evil in mankind. Again, that's what Golding does with it. So my sections will focus on the way he does it. Into a thoughtful, developed response. Okay? So let's take the first section of the Macbeth one, where we're looking at how is Lady Macbeth portrayed as a determined woman who seems stronger than Macbeth. Right, so the openings of all of these, same as the argument that we were just looking at, the openings are there to push you down a more focused and specific line than just saying this is the case. And therefore, what we talk about here is with your topic sentence, which covers the whole text, you should foreground the effect. Now, what I mean by that is a simple little thing. It's using to or when or something along those lines at the end of what you have to say to make yourself say, well, what effect does that have? Now, the reason for this is that often, if you don't put the effect up there, you'll end up putting that after your quotation. And rather than look at the quotation, you'll end up analysing the point you make to start with. Let's see an example of what I mean. The audience see Lady Macbeth make definite, quick decisions, in contrast to the wavering of Macbeth, which portrays her as the stronger force behind the murder of Duncan. The underlying bit there is the effect. Could easily have stopped just saying, we see her make quick decisions, that contrasts with Macbeth's wavering all over the place. But by saying what the effect of us seeing that contrast is, I've stopped myself saying that later and given myself a clearer focus. Okay? So, build it further. The next element is, of course, now to zoom in on how the extract shows this, with a focus on technique. Now, when you start this, the temptation is just to say, in the extract, she says, and go straight in and then analyse it. But really, we need to start with a point. How does this extract show her quick decisions, show her as the stronger force? So, have a look at this. In the extract, we see that Lady Macbeth's language illustrates her determination to get her way. Now, again, illustrates her determination to get her way is the effect, her determination to get away. That's what we see through her language. But do notice that the focus, as we said above there, is on technique. I don't pick out at the start here just a comment on her as a character. I've gone for the technique that Shakespeare is using. In this case, her language. Okay, it could be easily something else. Her soliloquy is soliloquy or something like that. And then its effect. And I think that's a really easy way to go at this. So, now we've got that, we're looking to zoom in even closer now on specific details. But make sure that that is evidence of how Shakespeare puts this across, not of what happens. And then we need to explain what effect he's trying to get with those details. So here I go. First of all, Having said that, it's her language that illustrates her determination to get her way. I've given you an example of that. And I've mentioned some terminology in the way. She uses imperative verbs, that's verbs which are in order, such as come, make, and stop, which create a feeling of control. So there's my analysis. Imperative verbs come, make, and stop is the example. They create a feeling of control. That's my analysis of them. And they make her seem able to order even the evil spirit she's calling upon. That's the effect. Okay? That says, what's the impact of her creating a feeling of control? And again, key thing, that will get the marks. Now, here's where I teach you how to go deeper. At that point, rather than moving on and making a new point, let's zoom in. Let's look even deeper into the text and see if this is actually too simple a thing to say that she's ordering the evil spirits around. Well, when I look closer, this is what I see. The most commonly used verb, imperative verb, is come, which is repeated 3 times, suggesting this is more of an invitation than an order. So what I'm seeing is that even though I'm saying she's using these orders, the most common one is come, which is hardly an aggressive order. It's more, as I say, of an invitation. Come on, come in, come to me, please. So it's not necessarily as controlling as it seems. So I picked an example. I picked I've analysed it. I've interpreted the effect it has. Now I've zoomed in, looked even deeper to discuss if this actually is too simple for me to come up with. I now carry on this point, develop it in more depth, by looking at further evidence which is connected. So further evidence of her language illustrating her determination to get her way. So here, I now go to the extremes of her requests, asking to be filled top full of direst cruelty, suggest extreme passion in her feelings. So there we go. Further evidence, extreme requests, top full, direst cruelty, suggest extreme passion in her feelings. Analysis. Asking to change her milk for gall, another example. Life-giving milk changed into poison, or analysis, would make the audience see how determined she is, that she is sacrificing all that makes her a woman to get what she wants. And there's my interpretation of the impact and the effect that this particular thing gives. So there we are. Now do notice in this paragraph here how the AO3 naturally comes into the conclusion, especially as it says here, if you remember this is a drama, how the audience reacts to the fact that this is a woman saying it. I've no need to say it is unusual for a woman of this time. No. I'm just pointing out that she is a woman, and the audience will therefore notice just how determined she is. This with Lord of the Flies. So, starting with the topic sentence. As we see fear of the beast build, Golding portrays Jack as taking advantage of it to establish himself as a hunter. There's the effect foreground. At the assembly in chapter 2, where the first idea of the snake thing is brought up, Jack denies it exists. So here's my point. But says that he will hunt and kill it if it does. And there's my evidence. By doing this, he is able to seem sensible enough not to believe in it while presenting himself as the protector of everyone. And there's my analysis. So we move on. While Ralph just sticks to reassurance there is no beast, Jack gives the little ones what they want to hear. So I've moved on now to the next stage here. I've kind of analysed it a little bit more. He says he's the protector, but presents himself as a protector, But what it really is that it's different to what Ralph is saying. Ralph is just saying there isn't one. Jack says, well, this is what they want to hear. This is what you want to hear, that we will protect you. Yeah. To the next point. By the time the airman arrives and gives a physical body to the beast, Jack is in the position to use this to discredit Ralph. So that's how I'm now giving example here of it, telling the others that Ralph was too scared to go ahead at the top of the mountain. It's my final interpretation. Golding directly links Jack's increasing power to the increasing beast. So that's how we build a section and how we start to carry on. There's more to be said, obviously, about this beast building. I'll now move on to another point and develop that before I go to the second half of the response. Think about writing a conclusion at the end, because that often is a problem for people. First of all, what's a conclusion for? It's to sum up your ideas, to tell the conclusion that you've reached. Your argument was setting up what you think. Your conclusion is where you've got to by the end. For example, with the Macbeth one here. So, Shakespeare creates an incredibly strong and determined woman who stands out from the other females in the play, but then makes it absolutely clear to us that she's only able to achieve anything through her husband. So now we suggest why he may have done this. The result is a portrait of a woman who gets what she wants, but then is pushed completely out of the way and has no further purpose. So there you go. We see, first of all, I've reached that conclusion, very similar with the but there to the beginning, but this is what it actually ends up as. And then, why has he done it? And that's my conclusion. So to conclude, create an argument using the but approach to build an approach to different interpretations. Use these two interpretations to structure the response. Then plan what you're going to say in each section. And create a developed argument. Topic sentence with foregrounded effect. Specific point with foregrounded effect. Specific examples analysed and interpreted. Consider if it's too simple a conclusion. And then use further examples to develop the idea further. And repeat until complete. And finally, use the conclusion to suggest what the writer is trying to achieve.